PAX attendees, please welcome Origin Stories, bringing Wayfinder to life.
Hello, everyone. How are you today? This is exciting. I know there's going to be people at home watching, and we've got 80 people in front of us. Hopefully more funnel in, because this is, you know, a great look at Wayfinder.
80,000.
80,000 people, sorry.
Gotta hype it up.
Today, you have a treat about to happen. We've got Joe Madureira, CEO of Airship Syndicate. We've got Ryan Stefanelli, the president, and we've got AJ LaSaracina, who is honestly just the best looking guy in the room.
The only bald one here. Yeah.
He said all the names right. I'm really impressed.
He did.
It's pretty good.
It's phonetically on the list here. Now, I am less important because I'm not with Airship. I'm just a content creator that got a chance to play Wayfinder back in September. We were flown out to play the game, give some feedback, and it's been pretty incredible watching it progress over the last few months. And you know, even playing it again here today, some of the changes that I suggested are in-game, and you know, that's a testament to you guys listening to feedback and wanting to make this the best game possible. I have a feeling, Joe, that you may have a little bit of impact on where this art style is coming from. Can you give us a little bit of a backstory on your path through comics and then into now gaming?
Yeah, so way back in the day, a long time ago, I worked at Marvel, most notably on the X-Men, but I did a bunch of other books as well. Started a comic called Battle Chasers, which, thank you, famously only made it 9 issues, although 10 is coming out in June. Stay tuned. And that ended up being our first game at Airship. Also, we were going to Kickstarter, and we were like, we knew we wanted to make an RPG, and Battle Chasers seemed perfect for that. And you know, along the way, before that, though, rewinding a bit, I was one of the founders at Vigil with Ryan, and we did the Darksiders games, which you guys may be familiar with. And just over time, I think my style evolved. You know, it's always gonna have some element of like comic book superhero-ness to it, mixed with like dark fantasy and just fantasy games in general have always inspired me. Even Battle Chasers was kind of like my wanting to do a Final Fantasy style universe in US comics, which just didn't exist. At that time, fantasy comics were like Conan the Barbarian or something like that. So that blend of steampunk fantasy technology is something I was always excited about, and in Wayfinder we're pushing that even more. There's a lot more sci-fi. Obviously I can't take credit. All the amazing visuals you see, I have to credit our amazing concept art team and our 3D artists. Like, we just have historically always been an art-focused studio, and we just keep pushing the envelope there and building like the most amazing art team we can.
I mean, even the first time I played it, I realized that a lot of these visuals are essentially timeless. I find that some games you see that were trying to be the highest fidelity or the most beautiful visually, in some cases they get dated. And you look back at some games like Wind Waker, which at the time was so cartoony, and now it's one of the better looking games because it just didn't really age. I feel like a lot of the models, a lot of the environments, they're going to look beautiful 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And with this game, I think that's a good thing because you guys have really committed to Wayfinders being something that people are going to keep playing year after year, which is really cool. Now, you mentioned that you were in comics before and then moved into gaming, I believe you said with Vigil. And so with Airship Syndicate, Ryan, you and Joe have kind of come together for this company. How did that all start?
Well, we worked together a very long time at this point, and even
too long.
Yeah, some days. Joe had gone back into comics after Darksiders 2, and after original THQ went through bankruptcy, a group of us from Vigil had splintered off and started a US-based studio for Crytek. And it was around that time that Joe and I started discussing again the idea of starting a new studio, something that was smaller, something that would let us work on a different kind of game, one we had always wanted to make, because as game developers, we've always been sort of like wanting to check games off our bucket list of the game. We tend not to work on the same genre more than once, which may be kind of foolish sometimes, but you know, Darksiders was like our love letter to Zelda, definitely with our own take. And Battle Chasers was, man, we really want to make a turn-based RPG that tugs at the heartstrings that, you know, Final Fantasy and those classic games did, like the Super Nintendo era turn-based RPGs. And at the same time, it actually ended up really working well with our vision for Airship as a studio that we'd never really put a cap on our growth, but we knew we wanted to start small, and so we wanted the game that we made first to be something we could achieve with a smaller studio. And actually, it didn't start as Battle Chasers. That first game we were going to do as a turn-based RPG was going to be a new IP, and we kind of had to talk Joe into using Battle Chasers because I think in a sign of his own humility, he was like, people don't care about Battle Chasers anymore, which thankfully was not true, because then when we went to Kickstarter, I think it's a big reason why Battle Chasers was such a huge success.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting coming to Austin because I actually didn't realize that you guys did the League of Legends Rune King story as well. And then I look back and it's like, well, and Darksiders, and I started putting the pieces together, and it's like, well, I've already played games and loved games from you guys, and now all of a sudden, you know, there's this new like AAA title that's coming out, and so I think that if you look at the Metacritic and the games that you've done already, there has been some great reception, and so I think, you know, as a gamer myself, my faith is definitely up there, and I think a lot of people are going to be excited to see what Wayfinder evolves into and is. And so sign up for the beta right now. Make sure you're in on that so you can play it as soon as possible. But I've been playing it, like there's been 3 different betas so far, and the game has progressed, and now we're going on the 4th beta coming up, and I can't wait to see what new changes come.
Yeah, I think on that line, like the one thing, I mean, obviously we announced our partnership with Digital Extremes at TennoCon of last year. And so ever since then, it's really been about growing the team at Airship, building the game alongside of Digital Extremes, who is great in terms of helping us in things like free and fair monetization, listening to the community, and then, as you mentioned, it's like taking that and actually making it actionable. There's a lot of companies and a lot of games that might say like, hey, we want your input, but like we genuinely want your input. To Mtash's point, like everything that someone submits through like a feature upvote, which we have a really active Discord community, Steam forums, like we read through those things, we talk about it as a group, we weigh, hey, is this a good idea, is this a bad idea? So making a game is a big task, and I think when we say, hey, sign up for beta, we really mean it, and that's really what I think the Digital Extremes help, because like you said, it's a total shift from making those other games. All the games you saw behind us were awesome. People love them, we love them, but this is a brand new beast that we had to kind of start from scratch.
I mean, Steve isn't here today, but I remember just chatting with him the first time. You could see he was geeking out about the game more than I was. Like, you know, I'm asking about passive abilities and the bosses, and he was right there with me, so you could see that love for the game and building this new thing, and that's exciting. And the fact that you had us out to talk about it so early and give feedback, it shows that you want this to be the best thing possible, which, you know, is a bonus. Now, with this whole process, joining up with Digital Extremes, this project has grown even from kind of the inception of what you first expected the game to be. What have some of the struggles been along the way?
Anytime you have to grow the size of a business, that's a challenge, because one, finding great people, which we've been very fortunate to do, even going from 4 up to 80 or 90 that we're at now. It seems like that's fast growth, but secretly or quietly, we've been in business for almost 9 years. Sometimes that number surprises even me because time is flying.
Yeah, I just said 6 like within the last week, like
Yeah.
6 years ago.
It's like, no, it was 9 years ago. What the hell? But yeah, growing the team is a big challenge, because we knew that things about the studio culture would have to evolve. We didn't necessarily want the feel of what it was to work at Airship to change. We knew it was going to evolve, though, which is a little different than wholesale change, and I think we've more or less accomplished that. But then on the development side, what AJ was pointing out is probably the biggest shift, which is you go from premium box title development where you're kind of developing in secret and when you reveal the game, you're sort of being predictive about what you think players will want to see, what's going to land right. Maybe you get to do some small scale focus tests to get feedback, but you're more or less behind a curtain until you reveal the game and kind of cross your fingers.
Right.
And this is the opposite of that, which is where you lay the foundation and you say, get it into players' hands early, and now we can let them tell us what we should do next, in a way.
And we're not always right. I'm sure there's a lot of armchair devs that think they know what's best for gaming. And I mean, even when I was sitting there, it's like, well, what about a helicopter? Like, should you add one to Wayfinders? And I think there's that balance between developers that...
I mean, we'll think about it.
Yeah.
We could do a steampunk helicopter. It's basically an airship.
No, we actually had a bug in one of the betas where you could just kind of infinitely keep like jumping in the air and like float around. And when we removed it, people were bummed. They were like, bring that back. That was so fun.
Well,
But it's broken.
Yeah. Wasn't there a rumor that you didn't want like the air attacks in game because you were really worried about the level designers having to deal with the game essentially breaking, and then you played with it and it was like, oh.
Yeah, air dash actually.
Yeah, so spoiler alert, we might be adding air dash. Yes, air dash was a very requested feature by players, but also internally. And we've been resisting it just because so much of the game was built, and it would definitely piss off the level designers, the environment artists, because bugs galore. As soon as you can jump, double jump, and then air dash, you're going to get out of bounds real easily. So I was actually staunchly opposed to air dash, trying to save everybody some sanity. And then Steve made the mistake of, just as a quick test, enabling dashing in the air, and then he had me play it, and I was like, you're screwed, man, because that's too fun. So we are definitely putting in air dash. And when people are mad, you can talk to Jesse and Clint and John, our leads on level design and environment art.
But I mean, that also, you know, shows that you have a great idea, you try to implement it in the game, and working with Digital Extremes as well, you know, they need to have faith in you that you're going to make the best decisions possible while developing. You know, how did that partnership happen with Digital Extremes? You know, I've played some of their other games. You know, I've known about them for a long time, and so as soon as that name was attached to this, it definitely did pique my interest. How did that come about?
It's funny because when we were pitching the game to publishers, one of the ways that people would wrap their heads around the game we were making is like, oh, it's kind of like Fantasy Warframe, and we were like, I guess it is kind of like that. And then when we met with DE, finally, they said the same thing, and we were like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if like we actually did this together?
I think enough people had made that comment during the pitch that we put it in the pitch.
Yeah,
like,
I think
well,
we
this
did
is going to help
say
people
we're
understand
like,
it. And then
Fantasy Warframe.
And then we pitched it to DE, and we got to that slide, and I kind of looked at it, and I thought, okay, wait, I promised this was in here before we knew we were talking to you guys.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our visions aligned. Like they liked a lot of like, I guess, having the Warframe style. What do you want to call it? Like, I don't know. We were in sync on a lot of things. So,
like the loops or
yeah,
like the kind of gameplay.
Exactly.
There's a lot of core elements that we share, like being collection-based and character-based, and so it just made sense, I think, once they saw that and they saw the passion and the vision of the team. It's like, we want to play these games just like Warframe creative, because they wanted to play that type of game. They wanted to make something and make it awesome.
And being in a fantasy world, like, it felt like substantially different, so it was a completely new experience despite that. So that was exciting.
And when we say we use the term Fantasy Warframe, obviously the game moment to moment is nothing like it, but it's similar in that there are some randomly generated dungeons that are instantiated. We have static overworld. It is collection based, and I think the thing we're really leaning into through the partnership with them is understanding of what players have appreciated about Warframe's monetization, and you know, the way it's free, the way it's fair, everything that is power related can be earned in the game. Players have responded very well to that, and so that's like a if it ain't broke, don't fix it thing. We have a lot of trust in them to lead us the right direction.
Yeah, well, I noticed like while playing in the open world too, it seems like it's an evolving game, or even just the gameplay loops do change, because I was just fighting some enemies, a star essentially like landed on the ground, and it was a public event that I had to deal with, There was another one that opened up a dungeon for me that I had to go in, and so I don't even truly know what this game is. But if you could sum it up in just a few words, what would you kind of want to put out to the world? What is Wayfinder?
I think the way we usually describe it is that it's an online character-based action role-playing game for you and your friends, like old friends, new friends. Like I mentioned before, we have all played these type of games, and we're passionate about these type of games. We've played everything from WoW to EverQuest to Destiny 2 to Vindictus. There's like so many games that the DNA is inside this game. But it's really about adventure, and it's about playing online with people, and it's tapping into Airship's strengths, which are amazing characters in a beautiful world. We have an awesome set of lore with an awesome writer that Joe might talk about a little bit later, and we'll show some cool stuff too. But it's really about just getting in there and feeling like you're progressing. You got 5 minutes, you got 10 minutes, you got 15 minutes. You can level up your character. You can go on a hunt with friends. You can go collect a weapon. You can explore something like you found and maybe find a public event. So we're really making the game that we want to make, that we know a lot of players want to make, and it'll appeal to a lot of players based on the time that they have and the commitment they want to make to it.
Now, you mentioned that Wayfinder is a character game. There are multiple characters that I've had a chance to play already. Why did you make the decision to do a character-based game?
Well, it didn't start that way. So let's talk a little bit about how it started.
Early on, it was a little more traditional RPG-ish, where you had like a blank slate and you could make the character you wanted, pick a class.
This is some old school art. That's like the
Yeah,
very first
this is
key
the
art.
OG. And it was like rogue, warrior, and it felt a little generic. So as we started to like infuse it with like what would make it more exciting for us, and upping the level, it was a lot more grounded too. Like it was, everyone was human, and you were like in a little village, and we started to just push it more and more. And having worked on Ruined King, we just had the idea, like, if you were like taking these characters that had predefined stories and histories, places in the world, relationships with each other, but they still fulfilled like different combat roles. It's a way more exciting starting point, and I think it leans on our expertise a little more, and it was just more exciting, to be honest, for the whole team. And as soon as we started to like brainstorm what these characters could be, there was like no turning back. And of course, the flip side of that is giving players enough customization options that they can make their Wingrave different from my Wingrave and your Wingrave, both in like combat ability but also like visuals. So you still get to scratch that itch of like, having your version of the character, but it gives us another storytelling device too, by having characters that, have a place in the world and these relationships that we can touch on over time. Because we do plan on building this game for years to come, and something we'll talk about a little later too is exploring the story even outside of the game. We always wanted to make it feel like there's way, way more here than what you actually are seeing at any given moment in the game, whether it's explored through short stories or novels or animation. We do plan on like telling the story of this game world in like every way that we can. So
yeah. So and the one thing I want to jump into is like we've kind of talked a little bit about the game and now the characters as well, but like this world is fully fleshed out in terms of like it is a world that we want players to get lost in. Tell us a little bit about the actual the world itself. We've talked kind of about the gloom without saying the gloom, so set the stage for us in terms of what the game is and the backstory of what the player is doing.
Yeah, so the world is called Evanor, and you exist in the city called Skylight, which has a beacon that's protected it throughout this apocalyptic event called the Gloom. And the Gloom is sort of like a mystical alien presence, for lack of a better word. There's a lot of mystery surrounding it, and actually when you start the game, a lot of it is just figuring out what it is and what it's done to the rest of the world. But you meet a character called Omen pretty early on, and she brings your hero character back from the Gloom using an echo. And echoes are kind of like fragments of distorted reality that have been touched by the gloom. It gives us a really good story device to be able to randomly generate areas, for instance, or have multiple instances of the same character running around, because it's kind of like our version of a multiverse where anything that the gloom has touched can be manipulated or brought back.
Yeah, it is
if you
kind
know
of like a
what you're doing.
multiverse engine in a way, the gloom, which is why some of these areas that we call the lost zones, those are fully lost to the gloom. So every time the Wayfinder uses the gloom dagger, which is the only thing that can pierce the veil of the gloom, and only a Wayfinder can wield it, every time they slice through it, they're basically stepping through into some twisted version, some seed of reality as it once was or may have been, and it's twisted by the gloom. And it's always anchored in the gloom by a thing called a gloom anchor. And the Wayfinders are just always sort of trying to go into the gloom and destroy these gloom anchors to try and kind of keep the gloom at bay. It's like this constant maintenance of it, while also trying to find the creatures that you're hunting that ultimately control it. But that same energy that twists and bends lost zones can be used to recreate like the lost heroes that were killed fighting the gloom, and that's what the Wayfinders are.
My Senja is from a week ago, yours is from a month ago, but it's still her. She's got her personality, that showboating. And I mean, even the first time, I think that was the first character that I played in Austin, I was like, oh, it's a gladiator. And then when you do the showboating and you start flexing on the enemies, I was like, oh God, that's so much more spice. And I think that is the nice thing about the characters, is they have that personality to them. They are a character with pros and cons and some personality, and I think it does add to it a lot. And even one of the visuals that you showed us in Austin, it was like, whoa, this is like a little anime, like a little story, and I'm excited to see a lot of these things unfold and figure out who are these people, what is the gloom, and how do we stop it, right? Now, with characters and customization, there are some visual things, but can you touch on how can I make my Omen or my Wingrave different from yours?
One of the biggest and I think most interesting metas that we have available is that every character, when you unlock them, will start with their signature weapon that belongs to a weapon class. And the weapons definitely define a large part of the character's role and playstyle. For example, you can give almost any character in the game a sword and shield, and there are many steps towards being tanky, right? But initially, each character only starts with the weapon class that their signature weapon belongs to unlocked. And that helps you understand the character, sort of their identity. It's what you'll see when we're talking about the character in lore or showing trailers. But players can work to unlock any weapon class on every character. And so that's probably the biggest and most visible difference from one Wingrave to another, is that you may be standing in town and you've got traditional sword and shield Wingrave, and you see another guy who's got a rifle. And if he's got the rifle, he's probably got a rifle build, which means the creature echoes, which are slotted elements that drop off creatures, probably got an interesting roster of those. The way he's chosen to upgrade his abilities might better synergize with the rifle than it does with the sword and shield. And I think we're really keen to see how players, what they do creatively with the meta to slot characters into different roles based on the weapon that they have equipped. And I think that's probably the most significant functional way that players customize. And then there's tons of cosmetics just to look different. Dyes, different styles, and different slots. So once we get into early access, I don't think any two Senjas or any two silos are going to look the same.
It's interesting because you might have Omen that looks like almost a spellcaster, and the meta might be great sword Omen slashing in there and just playing like a glass cannon type thing. And that is something that I'm definitely excited about. Now, I'm not sure if you'll tell me. I'm going to try to get some leaks for everyone here. You mentioned that there are some dungeon bosses, and they may even have unique weapons different from some of the starting weapons that have different abilities. How do these weapon abilities change the way a player might play?
No, you picked it up first.
Did I?
Yeah, I don't know. Yes.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, it's about, like Ryan was saying before too, when you're customizing a character, you're really customizing how you play. And so it's important to note that we're not a loot-driven game like, say, a Diablo, where it's like, hey, you're getting 15 or 16 swords in a dungeon run, right? We want players to work towards creating that sword, and then it's theirs, and then they're upgrading it, and they have it for a long period of time. And maybe it's good on one boss, or maybe it's good because it has a support ability. We have a sword and shield in the game that when you pop its ability, each weapon has a unique ability. it gives a shield to you and everyone else around you, right? And then there's another sword and shield that when you throw it out, does the Captain America type bounce. So it's really about finding what you want, going after it, and then upgrading that weapon for a long period of time.
Yeah, weapons have names, they're unlocked, and really once let's say you're Wingrave and you love two-handed swords or two-handed axes, the reason you would get a different two-handed axe, and they're similar to characters that they have a name, they level up, they have different ways that you can upgrade them, different stats, but the most significant difference between one two-handed sword and another is the weapon ability that it comes with. So basically every time you swap out a weapon, you're swapping out one ability button on that character. And so there's a lot that players can do to mix and match. Even if you love one weapon class, they're going to be different. You're going to want different weapons just so that you can have a different weapon ability in your arsenal based on, if you're just running solo, you probably want a DPS ability. But if you're Wingrave and you're going into an epic hunt or an elite hunt where you have to be playing sort of roles, like you need somebody that's keeping aggro and you need somebody that's going to heal and you need somebody that can burn things down, you'll probably pick one that's got a defensive ability.
Can you leak one cool ability from a weapon? An official one?
Leak? Well, I don't know. I just like Whirlwind. There's going to be a badass Whirlwind in.
The Whirlwind, okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
I gave 2.
Yeah, I know, but
That was pretty good.
I'm trying to get as much info as I can because I'm excited. Now, with that, I mean, I just mentioned bosses or dungeons. I mean, that's a whole other design concept too that I wanted to touch on, because creating the characters is one thing, but I was watching some trailers of a new, I don't even know what to call it, monstrosity running around hunting the players. It was big, and that thing right there. I find it so interesting that you've come up with all these different enemies. Is that as fun as creating some of the characters? Is it less fun? Is it more difficult? Like, what are your thoughts on creating some of these enemies?
I feel like you like drawing monsters more than characters even.
Yeah, I mean, I love creatures. We have, it's some of the most fun meetings we have is like running through, like the creature review weekly, where they just have finally implemented creature and like getting its behaviors working and stuff. It also has some of the funniest like AI breakdowns too, when they just behave sporadically. But yeah, we have a lot of creatures in this game. Like, you'll be shocked. We're always shocked because we have like an archive of creatures that are still waiting to get like rigged and animated and get their AI and everything. So I think you'll be pleased with the number of even bosses. We have mini bosses, we have elites, we have hunt targets.
It was just the other day too, like there was a conversation in Slack where someone posted something and it was like, supposed to be like the little trash mobs, and maybe it was you or someone else. You're like, no, that dude's awesome. It should be just like this big hulking boss. It's like, it's fun to see how organically these characters just kind of grow and then change and then become
Sometimes
bigger.
literally they just get bigger and bigger.
And in that
the
case,
Joe
yeah,
Mad way.
just
Scale that
up.
guy up. Everybody at the studio loves hearing Joe's feedback, which usually starts with scale it up.
Yeah, make it bigger. Like, why is it so small?
Well, that's good though, because I mean, sometimes if you're fighting the same enemy type over and over again, it does get dull. I saw some slimes. I haven't got to fight this big baddie yet, but I'm definitely excited for that. And with the dungeons, I think you kind of mentioned earlier, are they procedurally generated? Are they like standardized, and is the same dungeon every time? How does that stuff work?
So they're randomly generated using hand-built tiles. So it's not procedural. That is, the tiles have handcrafted elements within them, and then they are randomly generated. And then using imbuements on the dagger to create mutators. Mutators can have a big effect on the way each Lost Zone plays. And you can use mutators to summon specific things into a dungeon, maybe change the size, change the effects, but ultimately the big thing you're changing is the loot, the things you're on the chase for, because you can craft every character, you can craft every weapon, you can craft accessories, sometimes you just need resources to combine things, and to do those, to get the best versions of all those, you're gonna have to not just go on dungeon runs, Lost Zone runs, but take the time to craft the mutators that will specifically target something. And sometimes there are things that may appear on their own randomly, like we have a loot goblin, and he appears whatever percent chance, low percentage chance, or you can create a specific type of mutator that will guarantee that he's in the run, along with some other effects, but you can guarantee that he'll be there. So if there's something that you know he drops that you need to craft a particular weapon, you can kind of target you can set that goal for yourself and target it by crafting a mutator. Some of them you'll do just because it's fun and it ups the a currency that you might get. or a particular type of like universal crafting ingredient. But I think that's ultimately where, when we say control the chaos, that's what it's about, is using mutators on dungeon runs, but also bosses, because you can apply those same mutators to bosses, and sometimes they have a minimal effect. But every now and then, there's a very special type of mutator that gets applied to a boss that completely changes the boss's mechanics. And they're secret until it ends up on the internet, and then everyone will know what the recipes are. But those are some kind of epic ways that mutators can vastly affect the experience.
So different move sets and attacks and everything?
Yes, often different phases. It'll give them a different ability, give them different behaviors, and you'll know because the name will be different. Something about the visual might be a little different. At its core, it's the same boss. Like the king slime becomes the royal slime, and he's got a little crown on, and everything about him is very different. But yeah, those are some of the ways that we think mutators are going to make controlling aspects of the game really fun for players and different, because randomly generated isn't really interesting anymore. At its core, you have to do something interesting with it, and the mutators are how we're doing that.
It's actually very interesting because there might be, the King Slime boss that I get crushed as Senja, but I can go in as Omen and have a great time. And playing with the different weapon types as well, it sounds like there's a lot of player agency, and they can play how they want and combat these challenges how they want. And even with those daggers, being able to build for defenses or for more damage or whatever it is, I like the idea of that, so that's great. Now, with the characters, so I know of 5 currently. Will there be more characters that get added to the game over time?
Yep, we plan on doing seasons, which right now are about 3 months apart, and we're going to introduce a new Wayfinder each season, and they'll have their own signature weapon and their own abilities and backstory and stuff. And each one is going to be accompanied by a really cool launch trailer, sizzle trailer that we really wanted it to be more like a vignette and like an actual story that adds to the world and to the characters, not just like a marketing thing, but an actual side story, which will accumulate over time and help build out the world. And I think, are we going to show one of those?
I think we are, but I think it's a little bit later on. I'm not in control of it.
Do it right now.
We could do it right now, I guess.
Yeah. Don't go anywhere. It's cool. It's the first time we're showing it. It's going to introduce a new character that's like the worst kept secret ever.
The worst kept secret.
We've already showed her, and people have spotted her in screenshots.
I think in Austin, I was like, that character's not in game.
Yeah, you're like, who is that?
All right, we pretend like we did it on purpose.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, before we go to her, we'll talk about creating Senja. How's that? Because we have that video first, and then we can go to it. Let's see, do we have that video that we can throw up there, the character? There we go.
Yeah, so sometimes it starts this loose. It's like, you're just thinking,
I do that one.
It'd be really cool if we had this like gladiator, and maybe she like has some PTSD where she like still is like in her mind, like in the arena fighting her enemies, and it like amps her up to like, hear the cheer of the crowd. And so that's where that like a lot of that like fist pumping, and like she's almost like a wrestler, like a WWE wrestler, and so we started playing with that idea, like, is that even doable? Is it something we're gonna pull off? We got the rose petals falling down. I think, and you can actually hear like the crowd cheering, and it like powers up her abilities. And then you just do a bunch of drawings. Our concept team's amazing. It takes a lot of iteration, you'd be shocked. And then once we finally have a direction we like, it moves to 3D. Even then, once you see things in 3D, sometimes it just doesn't work like it did on paper, and so we always do passes to refine that, and then of course it gets rigged and animated, and even that like is every step of the way we're trying to add to the character and to their attitude and everything, and make them feel unique as much as we can. I think we eventually want even like different. We want them to move different. We want them to feel different in every way. Obviously, like early on, there's a lot of sharing going on, but we're doing our best. I remember when this rendering of Senja hit and we shared it around the studio, we were like, oh my God, this is gonna be everyone's favorite character. But every time we add a new character, that becomes people's favorite character. So hopefully that continues, because we want people to have healthy arguments about who's the coolest. And hopefully we'll have dozens of characters, and the game will go on and on.
Yeah. The first time I played with her, I actually gave quite a bit of feedback because I liked the showboating. I wanted to taunt them, but it wasn't strong enough. And in the recent build that I played, you guys definitely tuned it, and it's almost cool because you have a taunt ability, and instead of just pressing it, you can literally showboat and flex on the enemies, and they're attacking you, and you're gaining more bonuses, and you're buffing your team because you're stuck in that animation and taunting them even longer. And it really does play to that character, and I think you guys definitely nailed the feel of that one so far.
Cool. Yeah, I think the other thing is obviously Joe's talking about how the characters start, and then we look at them and they get refined and they get made, and then they become people's favorites in the office. And then the next step is that we have to cast them, right? Like, our characters have voices. We want to tell their stories, as Joe was saying, inside the game, outside the game, through trailers, through comics, through other means. So that's kind of the next phase. And so we do have voice-acted characters. All the Wayfinders are voice-acted. We want to show what that kind of looks like in terms of when you're starting the game. You get to pick a character that has a set history and has a set background. We're going to play that in a second, but you'll probably recognize the voice, and then we'll discuss the voice talent just a little bit.
Cool. Are we going to watch it?
It's coming up, I think. Whoop. Well, there you go. Can we play the... Yeah.
I remember. I am Harless Wingrave. I was a warrior, an Imperial Archon, charged to carry the light of the Architects into the darkest places, and to vanquish the forces of evil. How much time has passed? It's all vague. I remember countless enemies, cultists, monsters. Now, it seems that the Empire has been swallowed up by this darkness, that the Architects themselves may have fallen, but their light lives on in me, and I will fight to protect those who survived.
Ooh, who was it, Joe? Want to announce?
Yeah, that was JB Blanc, who we've actually worked with in the past. He's in Arcane, Vander, and usually, like, we'll put out a casting call and everything, but, like, we knew that Wingrave was coming up, and, like, I was literally watching Arcane, and I'm like, I want JB to do it, and he was, like, all on board. He's also Braum from League of Legends, so we've worked with him a couple times, and he's just the coolest guy ever. So we're super excited to have him on board.
A good voice can bring a character to life.
I love his voice. He can literally say anything, and you're just like, read me a story. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have the full cast for the characters up on the website. We had it up here really quick, but it's a great cast. We'll be telling their stories inside the game and out. We're really excited that when you're a character that might be familiar with the location of the game, you'll hear them talk about it, be like, hey, I remember this, or I fought a war here. Like, we want to tell those stories through those characters because that's what makes them memorable, and that's what makes them powerful.
Will there be some of those kind of color commentary things that they throw in while exploring and doing dungeons?
Yes.
Oh, exciting.
Yep.
Now, who's that behind us? Can I ask that? I'm just sitting here looking at that, and I'm like, okay,
I don't know. Joe was like, oh, we should talk about this character.
Yeah, so
before.
people have noticed Ben, like, sneaking around in the background, and she actually was even in Skylight as an NPC for a while, just to, like, get her in the game, and I think we forgot to, like, remove her when we started showing. But yeah, she's the Venomous, and AKA Ven, her friends call her. She doesn't have a lot of friends, but yeah, and so her play style is all about...
I got a better idea. Instead of you explaining, why don't we play them a little bit of a video that we...
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, so as we said, we're interested in telling the stories inside the game and out. This is an example, just a little bit of a teaser of one of those animes that we've been putting together. That'll be a short on YouTube when the character's out, so let's roll that.
Sweet.
Shadra Aste, Shadra Has, Aspura Kalahidros.
Half the Shadow Nation must be here.
These dirt pushers harness the most dangerous magic on the planet. I'd be celebrating too.
Then pour the drinks, Tux. We're taking it home. To the maze.
There is an old entrance up top, but it's probably unreachable.
You're joking, right?
What the hell happened here?
Look at the burn marks.
Eldrin blades. Oh no, she's here.
Let's say hello.
Ven, wait!
That's badass.
The fight is so good. I wish
And
we
you
could
wanted
just
to
keep
cut
going.
that earlier. Come on.
I actually
That's a
wanted
good-
to show the fight scene and not that lead up, but it's okay. We'll save it for later.
Now I have more questions. How do I get them? How do I get those daggers? How strong are they in their optimal DPS?
So one cool thing about this one is that it does introduce a new character, but it also sheds some light on Nis, who's one of the starter characters, actually. And so you learn a little about the Eldrin and like the backstory that connects these two characters specifically. Not to spoil the ending, but they both take part in like a mission that goes horribly wrong. And so they're sort of bound by that secret. Nobody else survived it. And so they have a lot of conflict, but also a lot of like almost, I wouldn't call them friends, but I think that when you have like something traumatic like that in your like shared past, then it kind of binds you together. So these are the kind of stories I hope that we can do as many of as possible as the game. Hopefully it blows up and we just have all the support and resources.
And the opportunity to do something like this is a big reason that we decided to go character-based. You know, just to reiterate that, because I know it's people have strong feelings about that when they're playing a game that pushes into MMO territory. But we felt like it was a really unique opportunity for us and give more meaning to, because a lot of times you'll see in a game like this, stories being told about NPCs that you see standing around giving you quests, and it's another thing entirely to see those stories, know those characters, and then get to play them, which certainly is a lot of the inspiration we took having gotten so close to the League IP.
With a cutscene like that, do you think that would be at the end of a quest type thing to give more information on the lore, or how do you plan on interjecting these bits of lore into the world?
So this, stuff on this level really will exist outside of the game, but it'll be referenced in-game by like the characters' interactions and dialogue. Quest NPCs might talk about it. We have a discovery system. When you find certain things in the world, whether it's a location or a character or whatever, it'll sometimes trigger like a memory from that character. And we want to do as many like cutscenes and motion graphics and stuff as we can. Sometimes it'll be like lore journal entries, but we will touch on all this stuff in some way or many ways, depending on what it is. But obviously these like big budget cutscenes take a very long time to make and are quite expensive. So it's really gonna be like an outside of the game thing for now.
Yeah, and like this one here and ones like it that we're going to be doing will generally introduce a new season, which is what she's doing. Of course, this is our first, which will be early access, season 1.
So is Venomous going to be with season 1, or is she going to be at the launch of the game?
Yeah, so season 1 for us will be early access. When we say season 2, just so we're all clear, that's how we're telling stories. It'll be themed around specific characters with cosmetics and events and other things. So the first one we're calling Gloom Break, and will be around Venomous and kind of that style and motif. One of the ways that we are going to be introducing characters with the season is one of the things we want to announce today is our Battle Pass system. So our Battle Pass is unique for a couple different ways, and one is that premium Battle Pass does come with the character. We don't want players to have to choose besides buying that Battle Pass or buying the character. You get all that content. And then there's a Battle Pass tier as well that gives you a jump start towards that character. It's also really important to us that they feel value from that Battle Pass, and so they don't expire. You can pick and choose when you have one active. You're constantly working towards it, but we really are excited for players to have their Battle Passes and be able to work towards it at their own pace. Everyone hates the idea of having timed content that they might lose out on this or might not get to that, so we're not going down that route. Venomous will be our very first season, essentially, and our first character. She'll also have a signature weapon, and that'll be for early access when it hits sometime in May.
And a common question we get about seasons 2, or we've gotten even just at PAX since we've been here, is what happens to that content when you move from season 1 to season 2? But what we're doing with each season really is expanding the story, and that content stays. So there's the Battle Pass, which lives forever for anybody who bought it during the season, but the actual stories that are being told, if we introduce a new Lost Zone or we inject new gameplay into existing Lost Zones, here's our Battle Pass. Yeah, that'll still be there for players.
Yeah, and also we wanted players to have the choice, so it's kind of almost like a mini board game. It looks awesome. Shout out to our UI team for doing such a great job with it, but there is a path that you can follow, but you can pick and choose your rewards on that path, and like Ryan just said, they just don't expire, so you're able to work towards it your own rate.
Yeah, our goal with this, when we thought about, okay, most games that are a service like ours have a Battle Pass, players are going to probably expect that. But what can we do to make it a little different, and how can we really make it closer to the heart of what Wayfinder is, which is adventure? And so we came up with this concept of making it like exploring a dungeon. So as you play through the season, rather than leveling up your Battle Pass, you'll earn keys, and each key will unlock one of these nodes, and players basically work their way down these paths to unlock the rewards. And what's cool about it too is there's some adventure elements where you may discover a switch that you can flip that's next to one of the nodes you unlock that'll drop a gate and let you progress a new direction, or maybe even reveal a secret. Or this is a platform for gameplay that we want to introduce. It's very simple. Like, we still want the Battle Pass to be lightweight, but it's going to be a fun new way, we hope, for players to interact with something that they've traditionally seen as just like unlocking rewards linearly. This is a new way to interact with it and make it more fun and make it feel like it's actually a part of the game and not something slapped on.
And you're already talking about season 1, season 2. It seems like this is games as a service. You're planning on taking care of this game long term, and with Digital Extremes as a partner. I mean, we've seen it in the past with Warframe and things like that. Why did you choose games as a service, or why is this the kind of optimal way to tell this story, do you think?
When we started working on the game, we didn't necessarily, well, let's go back to the pitch. The pitch for the game wasn't necessarily a game as a service or a premium title. We knew that there was gameplay we wanted. We knew we wanted it to be a world that would grow over time, and we knew what sorts of experiences we wanted the player to have. And when we put this idea in front of Digital Extremes, because we showed it to a lot of people, when we put this idea in front of Digital Extremes, they said, have you considered this as a service-based title? And we weren't necessarily for or against it, but we really thought about it because we didn't want to substantially change the game or create something that was a bad fit just to try and tick some game as a service boxes. It really, we believed, was probably the best chance for this game to grow slowly as a business, or rapidly. We'll see how players like it. But to live kind of forever, that service-based model really works well for that. And it ended up facilitating a lot of the goals we had for what this game would be in 1 season, 1 year, 5 years. So we were kind of excited about it, actually.
So that means that there's going to be dungeons and other things to do 5 years from now? That's the game plan?
Yeah.
Here's how it better be.
Yeah, we're currently looking at about 3 months when we do a season, so that'll be a brand new character, the new weapon, new events, new quests, new things that we can enter into the game. Every other season, we're looking to do larger scale content as well in terms of like open world areas or dungeons. And so we'll just keep leapfrogging that. And the game that'll be in a year or 2 years from now won't be the same as when we enter early access, but that is the service model, and we're really relying on our players that are playing now in beta, as well as those that'll be taking part in early access to help us shape it, because we're listening and we're making the game that we want to make and that they want to make too.
Well, then how much would I have to pay to play this when it fully launches?
I don't have an answer for that for you right now.
Well, isn't the answer that you can actually do some of this stuff free to play?
That's true. So it will be a free-to-play game when we fully launch later on this year.
Yeah.
Couple big caveats with that. The elephant in the room that I'll kick out of the room right now. We don't have any loot boxes. There's no gacha systems inside the game. The earnable content, I think that somebody mentioned before, it might have been Ryan or Joe, is that the characters, the weapons, all that stuff is earnable. If you want to play through the content and you want to really farm up your venomous when that time comes, you're able to do so. And so we think that that's a fair way to approach content, and we want to respect players' times as well as their wallets. So that's one of the great things that Digital Extremes has really helped us understand and shape the game in that model, and we've gotten great feedback about it so far.
That's amazing. But what if you wanted to play sooner? Are there any options for that?
Yes, so we will be offering Founders Packs. We get asked that a lot, probably because Warframe was so successful, and so the Founders Packs live in infamy now because you can see some with that Excalibur Prime that you can never get anywhere else. So we'll have some. Yeah, Ryan actually has one.
I do.
People, all right, fun story time. People, when we did that announce video, thought that we staged that and that it was totally fake and that wasn't actually your Warframe account, and that was actually your Steam Deck.
That was my Steam Deck. That was my Hairy Knuckles. That was my Excalibur
your
Prime.
Excalibur. We did not log into some magical dev account, so that is true. So yeah, we will have awesome stuff in that Founders Pack. We'll be announcing it a little bit later. There'll be multiple tiers, and that will be upgradable as well, but we'll go into details of those at a little bit later time. But the whole point of that early access will be to build alongside of us, and that's what we want people to do. And we've already done that. There's a lot of changes that we've done to the game already. Joe already spoiled the air dash. Yeah, the air dash. We've done things like adjust matchmaking, have a helper queue, allow you to move around and scale a little bit differently, loot adjustments, character, like all that stuff is constantly changing. And back to your question about like, hey, why a gas game? Like that's why a gas game, right? Like you can constantly improve and constantly make what the players want and make it with them.
Yeah, I mean, we gave a lot of feedback in Austin. I don't know how many there were, like 7 or 8 of us that were there.
9.
And there's 9?
9.
And to see some of those changes already
man.
come into game is pretty awesome. Are there any notable ones from our time in September where you're like, we got to fix that or we're going to change that?
I mean, it has to be Silo. It has to be
The gun.
Silo with the gun.
The
I mean,
rifle stuff.
The what?
Yeah, the rifle.
Yeah, the rifle. Or what? Everyone called it a musket. Everyone's like,
The
"Yeah, it's got a
musket."
musket. Like, what the hell? It's a rifle. Yeah, I mean, people played it, and we had some people that play games like Destiny and Genshin, and basically we had creators there that played these type of games, and especially a couple people that are really into the gunplay and saw the gun, and they're like, oh, I want to play this. And the overwhelming feedback was, it sucks. And we're like, okay, well, why does it suck? Let's break it down. That's why you guys are here. Tell us it sucks. And so we made a lot of adjustments, both with active reload, which is inside the game, making it feel a little bit better, the magnetism.
We added a bunch of settings that you could adjust.
Yep.
I think that was the thing that I sat and I was like, it's got to be stickier. Like, it's got to be a little bit.
Yep.
Even today when I played it, I noticed Senja, you know, it was very controllable, and it's like, I want to hit that guy, I'm going to hit him. And
The gun was a big one, but there was a mountain of just small detailed feedback, like where certain frame, you know, how it felt to dodge, where the iframes were, like what it felt to turn, like the windows that would allow you to interrupt your animations to turn while attacking. Like,
Senja's showboating too is another one that you used to just take a beat down when you were like, you know, trying to like showboat, like enemies would hit you and it didn't really feel good. It felt
Another one was just difficulty in general, I think. Like, we obviously wanting to make a game that's accessible for people to play and jump in. You don't want them to get frustrated, but the overwhelming feedback from both the creator summit that we had, and even when we ran our first technical test, was like, hey, this is a little too easy. We want a challenge. We're like, okay, you guys want to die? You can die.
We were so relieved that you guys were enjoying it though. Like, we were just nervously watching and we could hear laughter and we're like, oh, I think they like it.
Well, I played this spider dungeon with my brother, but if I wanted to do that solo, is there a full solo experience with Wayfinder?
Almost. I mean, we want the majority of the game to be soloable, even though you're always online, and especially if you're in our overlands or in Skylight, you're going to see other people, and we call that, like, you know, alone in the crowd. So we always want you to feel like there are people there. You don't have to interact with them. You can keep it at arm's length. Really, the only exception to that will be occasionally, if you were talking about just the main story quest, so to speak, some of the bosses, some of the really difficult hunts will ask you to get together with a group to be able to take them down. But matchmaking makes that easy, and otherwise, yeah, we want it to be a very solo-friendly game. If you go into a Lost Zone with friends, it'll change it up a little bit, maybe make it a little easier, in some cases more difficult. But yes, it's definitely a solo-friendly game.
Guess what? Those harder boss fights came out of that summit as well.
Yes, they did.
They wanted like a dedicated hard mode that was like, hey, you have to have a group of people. Rather
Specifically distinguishing a type of hunt that required a group from one.
Yeah,
that was
actually,
solo.
when you guys played it, a lot of you thought it was too easy in a lot of cases, so we did.
I said that.
Yeah, but then they said, "Oh yeah," and they load us into that.
Crank it up.
That aura night, like that big arena.
The Crusader, yeah, the Crusader.
The Crusader, and we just got dumpstered on. So, I mean, I think there's obviously some balancing that needs to be figured out along the way, but it's been cool to watch this evolve, and I just want to get the loot. Like that's where I'm at.
Give me the loot.
There's a lot to collect.
Do you have an official number on how many weapons are in game right now?
No, I don't know, a lot.
I have
There'll be 4 weapon classes and quite a few weapons within each class, I would guess. Probably in the 16, 20, somewhere in there. High
Only
teens.
Steve was here.
Only Steve was here.
We made fun of him being the numbers guy.
that
Steve would
guy.
know immediately. Steve's the game director.
Each weapon does have
Steve's
a
yelling at the
unique
screen
ability,
right now.
so
He's like,
it's,
God damn it, there are 16
not as
weapons.
easy as
Yelling.
just making a new visual. Like it does, like have gameplay implications.
It's almost like its own little character, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
And you kind of mentioned that with that Crusader, that weapon could be kind of a game changer for your class. And you know, I probably can't spoil everything, but it was pretty cool to see. Now, I have a question for you. If people wanted to play Wayfinder, what is the best way they can do that in the near future?
So we will have another beta event in April. So sign up now on playwayfinder.com, or you can visit Steam directly and opt into it. And then we will be having early access in May on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, PC, and then we'll have additional consoles towards the end of the year. But jump in to the beta event and build it alongside of us. Yeah, like I said, on console and PC. Cross-playing, cross-save, I don't think we said that, but that's also important to note. We want you to be able to play with all your friends, so it's a game to play with friends.
And your involvement leads to a better game because these guys listen.
Well, thank you. We try.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And we want it. We want the feedback, good and bad.
Well, thank you so much for having us today at the PAX panel. I'm MTash.
Yeah. Thank you guys
Everybody.
for coming,
Yes,
by the
thank
way.
you
We
guys.
were like,
PlayWayfinder.com.
it's nice having you guys out there.
Thank you. Shout out to all of our
Thank-
Discord and all of our other fans that are watching around the world as well. So thank you guys. Cool.